Chosen one, someone has been sent into your life and your first instinct may be to push them away, not because they are wrong for you, but because you have grown so accustomed to disappointment that kindness now feels suspicious. You have learned to brace before you receive, to question before you trust, to leave before you are left. And so, when a person arrives carrying patience instead of pressure, carrying steadiness instead of demand, something in you tightens instead of opening. You tell yourself you're being careful, but deep down, you know you are being afraid. That tension you feel right now, that quiet resistance rising in your chest as you hear these words, is exactly why this message found you today. If you have been sensing that something in your life is shifting, but you cannot name what season you are living, the 7 Principles of C.S. Lewis for the Chosen was written for that exact discomfort, helping you identify what this moment may be forming in you and why it feels so significant. To access the ebook, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment. Stay with this message, because what you do with the person God sends may determine whether the next chapter of your life opens or closes. Your body already knows the truth your mind keeps arguing with. When that person calls, something in your shoulders tenses before you answer. When they offer help, your hands hesitate before you accept it. When they speak gently, a part of you waits for the catch, the hidden cost, the moment the kindness reveals itself as a transaction. You have been carrying this vigilance for so long that it feels like wisdom, like maturity, like the natural posture of someone who has learned how the world works. But it is not wisdom. It is a wound that learned to dress itself in the language of caution. And tonight, as you sit with these words, notice where the tightness lives. Notice the shallow breath, the jaw that will not fully release, the way your chest holds itself even in stillness. That is the physical signature of a heart that has been waiting for permission to trust again. Here is what this message can responsibly offer you. It will not tell you that every person who enters your life is sent by God, because discernment matters and not every arrival is holy. But it will help you recognize the difference between the fear that protects and the fear that imprisons. It will show you why the people who come to change your life often arrive without announcement, without drama, without the fireworks you expected. It will help you see that your resistance to being loved is not a personality trait, but a pattern. And patterns can be understood, named, and gently released. And it will remind you that being chosen does not mean being spared from the vulnerability of receiving. It means being trusted with the courage to receive anyway. That is the promise woven through every word that follows. Picture this scene, because it may be closer to your daily life than you realize. You are standing in your kitchen, and someone has just done something kind for you without being asked. Maybe they remembered something you mentioned weeks ago. Maybe they showed up at exactly the moment you were quietly falling apart and pretended they were just in the neighborhood. Maybe they simply looked at you with a patience that asked for nothing, and instead of warmth, you feel a strange discomfort rising, an almost physical urge to deflect, to joke, to minimize, to change the subject before the moment becomes too real. Your coffee cools on the counter, your throat goes dry, you say something small and safe, and the moment passes, and later, alone, you wonder why you could not simply let yourself be loved. That wondering is the beginning of everything this message is trying to reach. You notice this pattern not because you are broken, but because you are becoming aware, and awareness is the first sign that something in you is ready to change. The hardest part of this season may not be the waiting itself, but not knowing what the waiting means, not knowing whether you are being prepared, redirected, or quietly rebuilt. The 7 Principles of C.S. Lewis for the Chosen offers a framework for exactly this kind of discernment, helping you distinguish between waiting, preparation, closure, and new beginning, so you can stop interpreting every silence as abandonment. Many readers who arrived feeling confused or tired of waiting said the material helped them understand their season more clearly and organize their prayers with greater peace. To access the ebook, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment. And as you consider that, notice how your resistance to this person mirrors your resistance to rest itself. Both ask you to stop performing and start receiving, and both feel dangerous for the same reason. The first opposition you will face is not external. It is the voice inside that says you are safer alone, that needing someone is weakness, that the moment you open the door, you lose control of what enters. This voice is persuasive because it has protected you before. It kept you standing when people left. It kept you functional when trust was broken. It built walls that looked like boundaries and called them wisdom. But there is a difference between a boundary that protects your peace and a wall that prevents your healing, and only you can feel where one ends and the other begins. The person who has been sent to you is not asking you to tear down every wall. They are simply standing at the gate, patient, waiting for you to decide whether the life behind those walls is still the life you want. Think of Peter, standing by the fire in the courtyard, swearing he did not know the man he had followed for years. Peter was not a coward by nature. He had drawn a sword in a garden. He had walked on water, however briefly. But when the moment of recognition came, when the cost of association became real, fear spoke louder than love, and he denied the very person who had changed his life. And yet the story did not end there, because the one who was denied did not withdraw his love. He returned, not with accusation, but with a question asked 3 times gently by a charcoal fire, giving Peter the chance to undo what fear had done. You know this pattern in your own life. Someone has loved you, and you have deflected. Someone has stayed, and you have tested them until they nearly left. The question is not whether you have done this. The question is whether you will let the story end differently this time. The cost of ignoring this signal is not punishment, it is repetition. You will meet the same lesson, wearing different faces, in different cities, in different seasons, until you finally stop running long enough to learn it. Each time you push away the person sent to help you, the pattern deepens, the walls grow thicker, and the loneliness becomes more familiar than the risk of connection. You begin to interpret isolation as peace, not realizing that peace and numbness are not the same thing. Your prayer life grows quieter, not because God has stopped speaking, but because you have stopped expecting answers to arrive through people. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the part of you that was made for communion begins to close, like a room no one enters anymore, gathering dust, holding furniture no one sits in, waiting for a door to open that you keep refusing to unlock. So let this be the moment you stop negotiating with your own healing. The person who came to mind as you heard these words, the one whose patience has confused you, whose kindness has unsettled you, whose presence has felt like both a gift and a threat. That person may be the very answer to prayers you prayed in a darker season and forgot you prayed. Type 777 in the comments as a simple confirmation that you recognize what is being said to you, and then return to these words. Because recognition without response is just another form of the same old pattern, and you were not brought here to repeat yourself. What you are fighting is not the person. You are fighting the part of yourself that believes you must earn what is freely given, that believes love without suffering is love without depth, that believes if you did not bleed for it, it cannot be real. This belief did not come from nowhere. It was taught to you by every relationship that made you pay for affection with your peace, by every season where the only kindness you received came wrapped in conditions. But the person standing at your gate now is not asking for payment. They are not keeping a ledger. They are simply present, and their presence is asking you a question you have avoided for years. What if you are allowed to simply receive What if the door you are so afraid to open leads not to another disappointment, but to the very rest you have been praying for? And here is where recognition alone is no longer enough, because you can see the pattern clearly and still not know what to do with it. The 7 Principles of C.S. Lewis for the Chosen is a practical companion for exactly this moment, offering guided reflection and discernment for the daily decisions that shape whether you open the door or keep it closed, helping you identify the next faithful step instead of reacting from panic or retreating into passivity. To access the ebook, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment, because the truth is that you already know what you need to do. You have known since the moment this message began. What you need is not more information, but the courage to act on what your spirit has already confirmed. Your mind will try to reason you out of this. It will list every risk, every past failure, every logical argument for why keeping your distance is the mature and responsible choice. Your body will try to protect you through tension, through fatigue, through the sudden urge to be busy whenever the person draws near. But your spirit, quieter than both, will simply wait. It will not shout. It will not force. It will hold the truth gently, the way a lamp holds light, steady and available, ready for the moment you stop arguing and start listening. Learning to tell the difference between these 3 voices, the reasoning mind, the reactive body, and the recognizing spirit, is the beginning of the discernment this entire message is pointing you toward. This does not mean you open your life to everyone. Discernment is not suspicion, but it is also not naivety. There are people who enter your life to take, and there are people who enter to give. And learning to tell the difference is part of the maturity this season is building in you. The person sent to change your life will not demand access. They will not pressure you. They will not punish your hesitation with withdrawal or guilt. They will simply remain consistent, and their consistency will feel strange to you, precisely because you are not accustomed to it. Pay attention to how you feel after time with them, not during the performance of connection, but in the quiet that follows. Do you feel more like yourself or less? Do you feel peace or do you feel managed? Your spirit already knows the answer. The strategy of everything that opposes your healing is not dramatic. It does not arrive with thunder. It arrives as distraction, as the sudden urgency of things that do not matter, as the fatigue that makes connection feel like effort, as the comparison that whispers that other people receive love easily because they are somehow more deserving than you. It keeps you scrolling when you could be calling. It keeps you working when you could be resting. It keeps you explaining why you are fine when someone asks how you really are. And the most effective tool it uses is time, the slow erosion of urgency, the gradual convincing that tomorrow is a better day to open the door, that next week you will be more ready, that the person will wait forever because they have waited this long. But people sent to change your life are not permanent fixtures. They are assignments, and assignments have seasons. There comes a moment when you stop negotiating with the truth. Not because the truth became easier, but because you became tired of the alternative. You become tired of the performance, tired of the deflection, tired of watching good people grow tired of your walls. And in that tiredness, something shifts. Not a dramatic collapse, not a cinematic breakdown, but a quiet surrender. The kind that happens in a car parked in a driveway, or in a shower where the water hides the tears, or in a kitchen at midnight when the house is asleep and you finally admit to yourself that you are lonely in a way that achievement cannot fix. That admission is not weakness, it is the doorway. And the person who's been waiting on the other side of your resistance is not waiting to judge you for how long it took. They are waiting because what they carry for you is worth the wait. Imagine a garden behind a house that no one has visited in years. The gate is rusted, not locked, just stiff from disuse. and the path is overgrown with the kind of weeds that grow when no one walks the ground regularly. Inside that garden, things have been growing in the dark without an audience. Roses that no one has smelled, fruit that has ripened and fallen because no hand reached for it. A bench beneath a tree where no one has sat for so long that moss has softened its edges. This garden is your capacity to receive love, and it has not died. It has simply been unvisited. The person sent to change your life is not coming to plant something new. They are coming to walk through a gate that only you can open, into a garden that has been waiting for someone willing to see what has been growing in silence all along. What has been forming inside that garden during the years you kept the gate closed is not nothing. Roots went deeper when there was no one to impress. The soil was enriched by every season of solitude, every night you thought was wasted, every prayer you thought was unanswered. The roses grew thorns, yes, but they also grew stronger stems. The fruit tree learned to bear weight without support. The bench beneath the tree weathered storms and did not break. None of this was visible from outside the gate. None of it could be rushed or performed or displayed. It was hidden formation, the kind that only happens when no one is watching, the kind that produces depth rather than appearance. And now the garden is ready, not because it is perfect, but because what has been growing in secret is finally mature enough to be shared. What kept the gate closed was not one thing but many small things, each one reasonable on its own. A betrayal that taught you to lock what was once open. A season of grief that made every visitor feel like an intrusion. The slow accumulation of disappointments that calcified into a philosophy of self-sufficiency. Weeds grew over the path, not because you planted them, but because you stopped walking it. And what is not used becomes overgrown, and what becomes overgrown begins to look impassable, and what looks impassable begins to feel like it was never meant to be crossed. The rust on the gate is not a sign that the garden is dead. It is a sign that the gate has not been opened recently, and there is a difference between a gate that is rusted and a gate that is sealed forever. One needs oil and pressure. The other needs a miracle. Yours needs only oil and pressure. And now something is moving. The gate is not open yet, but it is no longer still. You can feel it in the moments when you almost answer the message instead of leaving it unread. You can feel it in the way your defenses soften at unexpected times, in the way a simple kindness from this person lands differently than it used to, reaching a place that was numb before. The garden is stirring. The path is not clear yet, but the weeds are thinning where your attention has begun to walk again. The roses are turning toward a light they remember, even though they have not seen it fully in years. And the bench beneath the tree, the place where two people can sit without agenda, without performance, without the exhausting work of proving anything. That bench is waiting, and the moss on its edges is softer than you remember, and the tree above it has grown enough shade for two. If you can see the garden, if something in these words has shown you what has been growing behind your own closed gate, type "I see it" in the comments, and then come back to this message. Because seeing it is the beginning, but it is not the end. And what happens next depends on whether you are willing to walk toward the gate with your own hand on the latch. Returning to the person who was sent is not a performance. You do not need to arrive with a speech, with an explanation for every wall, with a rehearsed apology that covers every year of distance. You simply need to show up, present, honest, willing to be seen without the armor. The garden does not need to be perfect before someone walks in it. The roses do not need to be arranged. The fruit does not need to be polished. What the person is coming to see is not the landscaping, but the life, the evidence that something real has been growing in you, even when you did not believe it yourself. And the act of opening the gate, however imperfectly, however trembling your hand, is itself the return. Not a grand gesture, not a dramatic transformation, just a hand on a latch, a breath held and released, a gate swinging open on hinges that remember how to move. Here is one practice for the days ahead. The next time this person reaches out, whether with a call, a message, or an offer of help, pause before you respond. Not to calculate, not to rehearse, but to notice what your first instinct is. Is it to deflect? Is it to minimize? Is it to say you are fine when you are not? Simply notice it, name it silently, and then choose a response that is 1 degree more honest than your instinct. Not a complete unveiling, not a flood of vulnerability you are not ready for, just 1 degree more truth. If your instinct is to say, "Do not worry about me," try saying, "Actually, today was hard." If your instinct is to change the subject, try staying in it for 1 more sentence. Small openings, practiced daily, are how gates that have been closed for years begin to swing freely again. Here is another practice, and it is different from the first. Before you sleep tonight, sit in silence for 3 minutes and let yourself feel the weight of what you have been carrying alone. Do not pray with words. Do not organize your thoughts. Simply sit and let your body acknowledge that it has been holding a load it was never designed to carry by itself. Feel your shoulders. Feel your jaw. Feel the place behind your ribs where the loneliness lives. And then, in that silence, imagine setting the load down, not on the floor where you will pick it up again tomorrow, but into hands that are strong enough to hold it. This is not a technique. It is a surrender, practiced nightly, until the act of releasing becomes as natural as the act of clenching once was. There is mercy in the limits you are learning to set, and there is mercy in the limits that have been set for you. Not every door that closed was a punishment. Some were protection. Not every person who left was a loss. Some were a clearing. The boundaries you are building now, the ones that say, "I will receive love, but I will not abandon myself to keep it," those are not walls. They are the frame around the garden, the structure that says what grows here is valuable and worth protecting. The person sent to change your life will respect those boundaries, because anyone who is truly sent will recognize that a garden with a frame is a garden that has learned its own worth. And the pauses you are learning to take, the moments where you choose silence over reaction, rest over performance, honesty over impression, those pauses are not delays. They are the rhythm of a life that is finally being lived at the pace of truth. The decision before you is simpler than you have made it. It is not whether to trust everyone. It is whether to trust this one, this specific person whose consistency has unsettled you precisely because it is real. You do not have to decide today whether to trust them with everything. You only have to decide whether to stop pushing them away with the same hands that have been praying for someone to stay. Stewardship of this moment means recognizing that what has been sent to you is not owed to you, that it can be withdrawn, that patience has a season, and that the kindest thing you can do for both of you is to stop pretending you do not need what they are offering. You do. And admitting that is not defeat. It is the bravest sentence you will speak this year. If something in this message has settled into a place deeper than your usual defenses, let your like be your amen. A quiet agreement that needs no words and no explanation. It is simply the sound of a gate beginning to move, and no one hearing it needs to understand why. There is someone in your life right now who has been fighting the same battle, pushing away the very person sent to help them, confusing caution with wisdom, sitting behind a gate they built and calling it peace. You know who they are. You can see their face. They are strong in public and exhausted in private, and they would never ask for this message themselves, because asking feels like weakness to them too. Share this with them, not as advice, not as a solution, but as a delivery. The way you would carry a meal to someone who has forgotten to eat, the way you would leave a light on for someone coming home in the dark. You have heard the truth tonight, and the truth is not asking for your agreement. It is asking for your identity. You are not the sum of your defenses. You are not the walls you built or the gates you closed or the people you pushed away when you were too afraid to be loved. You are chosen, not because you are superior, but because you have been trusted with a capacity to receive and to give that this world desperately needs. Type "I am chosen" in the comments, not as a wish, not as a hope, but as a confirmation of what has always been true, and let the words settle into the place where your resistance used to live. Everything this message has carried moves through one current. Someone was sent, you almost missed them. Your body knew before your mind admitted it. The pattern of pushing away was not protection, but imprisonment dressed in the language of wisdom. The garden behind your gate has been growing in secret, and what has grown is not nothing. The rust on the hinges is not a verdict. The weeds on the path are not permanent. And the person standing outside your resistance is not waiting for you to be perfect. They are waiting for you to be present. The practices are small because the gate is heavy, and heavy things move slowly at first, but they move, and you are moving. And the peace you feel right now, the strange, unfamiliar loosening in your chest, is not the peace of everything being resolved. It is the peace of finally stopping the war against being loved. May you receive what was sent to you without apologizing for needing it. May your hands learn to open as easily as they learned to close. May the person at your gate find you willing, not perfect, not finished, but willing. May the garden you thought was dead reveal itself as the most alive place in your life. And may you know, in the quiet after these words end, that you are not alone in this recognition, that across this world tonight others are standing at their own gates, feeling their own rust give way, hearing their own names called by patient voices they almost silenced forever. You are part of something larger than your fear, and it has been waiting for you longer than you know. The gate is open. Walk through.